Welcome to Slim Nation's One on One podcast with conversations featuring the host, James Slim Overton.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Slim Nation's 101s podcast. Of course, I'm Slim Overton, and I have a special guest here with me this morning. And we've been trying to get together for a while, but anytime, like what to say, well, I can't think of the term I want to use, the saying I want to use right now, but it'll come to me later. But she's right on time. That's what I want to say. She's right on time this morning. And let me tell you, she's a singer, actress, author, playwright, poet, event designer, motivational speaker, kingdom coach, and can I say a minister or elder as well?
Yes,
I can
sir.
add all that.
I,
And she is Latrese B. Carter. Good morning, Latrese. How you doing?
Good morning. I am wonderful. How about yourself?
I'm good, and thanks so much for joining me this morning. And we're going to talk about quite a few things that you're doing. You're one of the busiest ladies I know, and I don't know, maybe it's in your nature. Maybe I kind of saw that when I first met you. It was in Grove Baptist Church, and you were a member of the choir. Was it in the old church or the new church, or were you
The
there
old
through
church.
the? Okay,
Yep.
so. Yeah, and that's when it got to the point where you had to pull up to church on Sunday morning and run to church to get a seat, or
Yes,
you have to sit in the back. I mean,
that's
that was
right.
the transformation. I grew up in that church, so I saw that transformation that Dr. Mariner brought to that church. He brought life back to that church, and you were
Yeah.
part of that in the choir. And what was amazing about you being in the choir, it was a family affair. I
Yes.
remember your parents being up there and your sister and yourself. I don't think your brother was in there.
No, my brother was in the army at the time, so he was
Oh,
down
okay.
in Georgia. Yep.
I hear you. I hear you. But if he was here, he probably would have been up there as well. But that was my beginning of seeing you, and I could see that you were based in your faith, and a lot of times that starts at home. As we
Yes.
talk about education and our students and some of them how they are acting and things like that. But a lot of that starts at home. All that training starts at home. And, if you expose your children to education, they're going to be good students. If you expose them to uh, church early on, uh, they're going to be spiritual and
Hmm.
religious, and that's going to continue. It might be some little periods in their growth where they go away, but that seed is already planted,
Yes.
and it's continuously growing. So, and then it manifests itself into your adulthood. So
Yeah.
how important was that to you? That kind of upbringing, and you're an amazing singer, by the way. I
Oh,
had to put
thank
that.
you.
And
Thank
seeing that
you.
your godmother was Peggy Britt, what
Yes.
can I
Yes.
say? It had to be some little lessons in there, or
Oh, always.
you need to train your
Still.
voice. You need to do this. Yeah, yeah. What an amazing godmother to have, for a singer. But
Yes.
how did that upbringing sort of shape you or prepare you for all the things you're doing now? I'm thinking, even as a little girl, I'm just assuming you probably were very energetic because that has to be that's something that's grown with you into your adulthood because I see all the things you do. But that family church thing, was very
Yes.
important. I was in the church with my family. It was just my mother, father, and myself. But Grove at the time was a church of families, you know,
Hmm.
and so that was very important. So how did that sort of prepare you for the things you're doing now and as we talk about the books and some of the things you've been through,
Yes.
life is It's something, isn't it?
Life keeps lifing,
And,
okay?
and can
But
you imagine going through all that without your faith?
not at all. Not at all. For me, of course, I was raised in the church. I tell people I was born in the church. I literally was
Mm.
not born in the church. I was born at Maryview, I think.
Yeah.
But but my mother always told me that, as long as she could get down on her knees when she was pregnant with me, she did. She would go to noonday prayer. The church I grew up in was Holy Light Church of Deliverance under Bishop Samuel.
Oh, yeah. I remember my first time going there. I
And
was, coming from Grove like it was before Mariner got there. It was very, I mean, I'm not
mhm,
complaining about it. It was very solemn. Everybody sat, nobody shouted, nobody,
very
one person,
traditional. That's
there was
what we
always
say.
one person that did it anyway. But, everybody
Yes.
turned around and looked at him. But I went to
Yes.
Holy Light one time when I was in high school, and they had drums and guitars, and you know, first I thought
We were the
blasphemy,
church.
but then I said, "Oh man, these people are rocking in here," and
Yes,
uh,
sir. Still
and
do.
I went back a few other times, and I ended up just listening to the sermon, as well.
Hmm.
But I was
Hmm.
waiting for those drums and guitar. But if that's what it took to capture me at a young age, that was all
Yes.
good. But it,
Yes.
go ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
that's
I had to break. I
no,
had to
you're
tell that
fine.
part.
No, no, no,
Holy
no, no.
light was something.
So that's my foundation.
Hmm.
Um, and as I said, my mom told me as long as she was still able while pregnant to get down on her knees, that was up into the 8th month, really. She stayed on the altar in prayer when she was pregnant with me. And she just kept asking God to bless her baby and to gift her baby and anoint her baby. And God did just that.
Hmm.
Actually started singing before audiences when I was 3. And I'm told I never had stage fright because just hand me a mic and I'm going to do what I do. And I believe for me, God was always important. And I always wanted to serve. I always wanted to please Him and to make my parents proud. And so always having the word. My mom was a school teacher. However, I say it this way. Not only did we have to do our homework, we had to learn a new word in the dictionary, learn something new in the encyclopedia, and learn a new Bible verse every day before we could go outside and play. So, all of my life since age 4, that was instilled in me. And I still have the word in me today. Um, Always energetic. Yes, I was a part of every chorus, choir. I was a part of the theater ministry at church, and all of that just continued with me. And I participated in everything I could. So, growing up and then eventually getting into ministry, I was 13 years old when God called me. And at that time, we had gone back to another church. And in that particular affirmation, women were not viewed as ministers, they were viewed as missionaries.
Hmm.
So I'm young, 13 years old. But I knew the calling on my life. And the bishop at that time, he was one of those radical, even in his own affirmation, where he believed in female preachers. So the way around me being a missionary and being who I was called to be, he allowed me to co-host his morning show. And that's how I got into television.
Mm.
So I was co-hosting with Bishop Ellie Willis the first
Oh yeah.
on Crusade of Christ, but the television broadcast. And I mean, he had a group of us young people, and I just happened to be one of the females there. And we talked about the Lord, and that was how I was able to first start my public speaking. In ministry, and the rest was history. By the time we got to Grove, I was already in ministry. I was youth worship leader on youth Sundays. I don't know if you remember that or not. It was me and
I
uh,
remember you being very active. It wasn't
yes,
just in the choir. It wasn't just in the
yep.
choir. It was
So just
throughout the church.
continuing doing what I had always done, and my faith has kept me. through everything. And even when I decided to pursue my theater company, which is Faith Walk Productions, Faith Walk. I didn't have a name for it or anything, but when I went to Willett Hall because I wanted to produce my first show, the manager there at the time, one of my sorors, hey Valora
Mhm.
Baskerville, told
Mention
me,
mention your sorority.
oh, I am a proud member of the first and finest Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Okay.
Therefore, my pink and green today.
All right.
But she told me, she said, well, this is what you have to do to go get your fictitious name. Then you have to go get your business license and da 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 da. Da. So as I'm driving to City Hall, I'm like, Lord, I don't have a name for this company, this business.
Mhm.
And he said, Latrese, what are you doing right now? Because you don't have a full budget to produce this show. And I was like, well, I'm faith walking. He said, exactly. So that's where the name Faith Walk Productions came from. And it started as just my theater company, but now it's branched into my umbrella of multiple businesses. And I'm just grateful to God for allowing me to be raised in a household of faith. So, yeah, is all I got.
Yeah, Latrice, let me take you back just a little bit, and then we'll continue on. And being young and being having your faith uh, in you when you were young and teenagers, how was that? You know, you in school, you went to Woodrow Wilson.
I did. I went to Will.
Shout out to the presidents. But I went there 1 year before I you know, got wise and went to IC Northam. But anyway, that's
Oh,
another
Lord.
story.
Okay.
We won't go there. But anyway, I'm wondering how, it, at Wilson or at in your neighborhood, being a teenager, and I'm sure you were uh, sort of sharing the word or
Oh,
sharing your faith
absolutely.
with teenagers. How did they accept that? How did they sort of, sometimes young people sort of push you away, say, oh, they see you coming, say, oh, man, she's gonna be preaching. So, well, how did that go? I mean, did you
Of
just
course, I
slide it
was
in,
labeled.
or go ahead?
Of course, I was labeled as the church girl. It is what it is. And I'm like, I'm still the church girl today. But no, I've always had a bubbly personality and people kind of were drawn to me. And while I had their attention, I shared the gospel.
Mhm.
And it wasn't always, me giving a scripture, but the life that I lived before people, um, and showing them unconditional, genuine love. And my mom, got to meet one of the groundskeepers at ODU some years ago, and he said, I remember your daughter being on campus, and it would be a crowd of students around her in the Web Center, and she was
Mhm.
just preaching until I'm like, Lord, I don't remember that, but I mean, hey, if the opportunity was there to share, that's what I was gonna do. So I've always God has given me that gift, and most people are drawn in by my smile, and I still smile all the time, but I'm just myself, and I love on people, and if I can share something that's going to help someone along the way, then that's what I do, and that is through the gospel. So yes.
And you're so right. That's probably what helped, because I can remember in high school some of the girls that were there that were spiritual and religious. They didn't approach it like you did, for the smile. They came with you frowning, and that kind of made a difference. And I think the way you approached it, even with the youngsters around you, some of them might not have come to it, but I think most people, could accept you
Yes.
more.
And
So,
one of my
and it
one of
probably
my
helped
high
some of
school Oh, yes, sir. One of my
them.
high school friends, she and I wound up going to Old Dominion together, and she always called me my evangelist and still calls me my evangelist to this day. But she was one of the people. Hey, Michelle. She was one of the people who, we used to ride to school together sometimes, talk about God frequently, but she was one of those people who would bring other people when I was just sharing on campus. And again, that's who I am. Even though I am an ordained elder, I have an evangelistic ministry. So I believe in spreading the gospel any way that I can, and I try to do that more so through my living, and the love that I show.
Okay, yeah, and so let's get back to. I just wanted people to know, that's one of the reasons we have these one-on-ones in Slim Nation to get to know other things about my guests. Uh, how they grew up because everything starts somewhere.
Yes.
To form the people to form the people or make them who they are today. So, and it starts at home, like I mentioned before. But before you got into doing your own thing, the production and everything, this seemed like a natural progression for you too. You worked in domestic violence. Was that some of your first jobs that you got coming out of ODU with the
Yes,
her
that was
shelter?
actually that was actually my first real job coming out of Old Dominion. Um, when I was in high school, I was a part of DECA and the marketing program and the marketing
Hmm.
club. And so I actually was a work study student. And my first job was actually working for Dr. James V. Cornetta down on High Street in Portsmouth. Um, Shout out, hey, Dr. Jim, too. Um, so my first job
I
was with
still
him.
go there.
Yes, and I worked for him from my junior year in high school all the way through college. So when I graduated, I needed to go into my field. I actually studied criminal justice in
Mm.
undergrad. And so to do that, I was looking for jobs, and the Her Shelter was hiring for a volunteer coordinator. And I went there for that, but I wound up doing some court advocacy as well. And with the court advocacy, I was helping to prepare the women who were our clients at the time, victims of domestic violence. Some of them needed protective orders against their abusers and things like that. But for me, I remember one particular um, event. I've always been doing events as well, but I did an event for the shelter, and it was called The Gift of Joy at Christmas time. And there was a family that had just come into the shelter, a woman and three of her children, the youngest, a 3-year-old little boy, and he had a black eye and a broken arm. And that was because he tried to protect his mother from his father's abuse. And in that moment, I said, I don't want to be on the reactive side of this. I want to be on the proactive side where I can help teach people self esteem and self worth, self value. So I wound up changing my mind from being an attorney, and I wanted to be a counselor. God had it to where one of the fundraisers for the shelter, that the owner of that company owned a foster care placing agency that also provided intensive in-home counseling. He saw the way I interacted with the clients, especially the children, and he offered me a job to come work for him. I had no experience in counseling at that time, just based on my background and some of my credits in sociology and psychology. He said, I'll pay for the rest of your education, for the rest of
Mm.
your certifications. Just come work for me. And that's how I got into the counseling field.
Wow, and that all prepared you, and then life always happens to all of us, and it prepared you when you got ready to write your book, and which is the one called I Come with Scars, and
Yes.
sharing. Not many people share their personal life like that, but you know. When you are in the position you are, evangelistic and elder and minister, you get more respect when you share that your life as well.
Been through.
You know, that's when what you say comes less preachy, per se, and it becomes more of a reality to those people because they can connect with you better, knowing that you are not even trying to act like you're perfect. Back in the day, some people would act like they're perfect and preach at you and not to you. So I think all those things were help you when you got ready to sit down and write that book. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely correct. Okay, so I wrote that book I published that book in November 2015, and at that time I had gone through a bad marriage. I had gone through a lot of things. Even I put some of the stories of my clients, I put some of my advice to those clients in the book as
Hmm.
well, because what people don't realize is that we all have baggage. We all do. And the
Yeah.
subtitle of the book is actually The Confessions of a Relational Hoarder. And if anyone has ever seen the television show that used to come on back in the day, Hoarders, it was a person who had experienced some things emotionally and they wanted to hold on to stuff. I mean, some
Right.
people, there was trash piled up, there were videos from years ago. I mean, just trash, just garbage, because that's what other
Yeah.
people saw was the garbage.
And,
But
and
to
I
this
like the way
person,
you did that.
those things,
I like the way you did
yeah,
that. The way you started the book out with that explaining, defining hoarders, and then just
hmm,
associating that with what you're going through, and I think that helped too. And then defining what
yes,
scar, you know. So that
because
was
we
real. That
all
was
have them.
real creative, I think.
Yes, we all
And
have them.
all have.
And
I got stuff in here
people
now that I try to throw out every week, and I end up bringing it back.
see, we all have it.
All
And
have
I
it.
tell people, think about the things that we have, like you, materially. But now think about all the stuff that you still carry emotionally for
Mm,
years. In counseling, I learned that a lot of my clients were holding on to grudges, people dead and gone,
mm,
still holding on to a grudge. And I'm like, how has that helped you in your life? It hasn't, because unforgiveness is baggage, but unforgiveness hurts you, not the other person. That person had gone on living their life, probably don't even remember half the stuff they did to you. But when we're holding on to that unforgiveness, it's baggage. And just like those who travel, when you go to the airport and you give them your suitcase, if your suitcase weighs more than the limit they give, you have to pay more.
you have
And
to
a lot
pay.
of times in life, we pay the price for all that baggage that we carry. Just get rid of it. So I help people to get rid of baggage. And
Yeah.
that's what I Come With Scars was all about.
Yeah, and I think you wrote that book in when did you first publish it? In
It was 2015, and then I
2015,
revised it.
and then
Yes,
you
sir. And
came
then I
back in
revised.
January and reintroduced it, because
Yep.
it still had a message that needed to get out there.
And still
Okay.
does. I'm actually working on a second volume too.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna get that. I got that on Kindle, and because I saw it, I wanted to get it before it could reach me. So I said, let me get it on Kindle, and I can scan through it. So I was kind of impressed.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to find some time to just sit down and read all the way through it, and then wait for your next book. Is it out yet, or the next book is coming?
No, the next book, excuse me, the next book, my solo project is coming, but I am one of the authors in a book anthology called The Words of Wisdom for the Heart and Soul. And my chapter 9, is about keeping your mind on Him so He can keep you in perfect peace. Again, I'm all about inspiring people to be free, whole people. And a lot of times we allow the distractions of life to take our focus off of Him. And then we find ourselves in some unpeaceful situations. So
Indeed.
as long as you keep your mind on Him, He'll keep you in perfect peace.
Yes, and keep that smile on your face like you always have.
Yes,
But
sir. And my
and
next
I
solo
go ahead.
project will be out, and I'm looking for a release date in December. And it's kind of a continuation of I Come With Scars, but that one is called Tracing the Trauma.
Okay. And I'd love to have you back when that happens. And because I knew when we finally book you that I probably would have a two-parter with you because it's just so much you do. And
Yes,
but
sir.
before we wrap it up, I want to talk about the thing you're doing with the men. And
Yes.
you can introduce the title of it. I mean, and we talked a little before the show came on how some men are not always appreciated for what they
Yes.
do. You have men out there doing things under the radar that not looking for recognition, but they just do it because their heart tells them to do, or their spirit, tells them to do it. And you have been doing this for 10 years, recognizing men and surprising them. I don't have you been doing it that way for 10 years? I know now every time I go on Facebook, I see you approaching another gentleman and catching them totally off guard
Oh God.
because these guys are not expecting any kind of, and it's usually a referral from somebody in the family or a friend that says this person needs to be recognized. So talk about what you're doing there and an event that's
Well,
coming
it's called
soon.
the Black Men Rock Image Awards, and it actually was founded by one de Bouvier. Some know him as Sakenia Williams. Um, and I remember we watched the BT Black Girls Rock.
Hmm.
And he said, Latrese, why is it that women always get recognition, but men never get anything but a hard time or
Right.
bad press? So he said, you know what? I'm going to start my own award show. And he did. The first show we did was June of 2013. And I was his co host for 8 of the 9 years, also his administrative assistant working behind the scenes. And um, over 250 men have been recognized, from national recording artists Chauncey Black from Blackstreet, Christopher Williams, R&B singer,
Hmm.
Gordon Guitar Banks, who we recently lost, who was the musical director for Marvin Gaye. We've recognized so many different people in whatever industry they're in. He passed away in May of last year, and the show was, of course, I'm grieving. I didn't want to do anything. And even this year, I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to do it. But I felt God nudging me like, Latrese, it's not about you. It's not about how you feel. These men still deserve to be honored and recognized for the gifts I've given them. So, with that, and speaking with his family and getting their blessing on it, I said, okay, Lord, how are we going to do it this year? Because I mean, Jacoby's not here. What do you want me to do? He said, do what I gave you. And theater is a part of that. So that's
Hmm.
where Steve Alexander comes in as my courier, because
Yeah.
Steve has been a part of Faith Walk Productions since the onset of that, back in 2008. So I called him and said, hey, I need you to be in character and do some deliveries. So Steve actually, once we get the bio for the honoree, he writes a poem for each one to introduce their invite to the event.
Wow.
And we've been popping up all over, even been doing some things virtually. This year, we're honoring some people in Atlanta, Raleigh, Tampa, Florida. We have someone out in LA, someone in New York. So I'm just excited about it. December 10th of this year at the Hilton Garden Inn, Suffolk Riverfront. Yeah. So
So
it's going to be great.
you're honoring all these men, but it's going to be open to the public to come
Yes.
and enjoy.
Yes. Yes. So what we're doing, we're still doing invites right now. And so
Hmm.
we're giving the honorees and their families first dibs, I'll say, at
Right.
tickets. And I really haven't released it to the public as of yet. However, it will be coming. on the 1st of October, we're going to open it up to the public where they can purchase tickets as well. It's going to be Bridgerton themed and inspired. So top hats,
The top
ball
hat.
gowns, tuxedos. Yeah, we're going all the way in. And y'all know I'm an event designer too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're going to bring Bridgerton to Hampton Roads.
And that's going to make it special. And another thing I like with Stephen Alexander being involved in portraying Jeffrey Wilson. I
Yes.
think it's also a lesson there because a lot of people just think of Jeffrey Wilson as that public housing complex that was
Yes.
over there. And
Yes.
Jeffrey Wilson was well, very
A
influential
person.
in
Hmm.
the city of Portsmouth. He was a reporter, right? Didn't he write for
Yes.
the Portsmouth?
Yes, he did.
And then I think he was one of the first black reporters to have a section in the white
Evening
paper
Public.
called Colored
Yep.
News, in a little
Yes,
section
sir.
in there, Colored News. So
Yes, sir.
so it's important. I mean, that's important too because I'm sure a lot of those people, and especially the ones that don't live in Portsmouth, don't realize, and many that live in Portsmouth didn't realize that it was a person, not just
Absolutely.
wasn't just a name they thought of. It was named after
Yeah.
a person because he did some great things.
Yes,
So thanks
sir.
for that.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, we about at the end here, the half an hour, like I said, but we're gonna have you back, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing uh, your story and some of the things that you are doing and your books and everything. So if you were right now, since school is starting, and you were in front, and you probably have done this before, and you were in front a bunch, a lot of students right now, what would be the best advice or the first advice you would give them starting off their uh, their school year?
Well, the first thing I would say is start this year with a clean slate. Last year's gone. You're in
Hmm.
a different classroom, maybe different teacher, some may be in a different school. Start this year with a clean slate. And whatever you put your mind to, do it. There are no limits on you. And I know oftentimes people say the sky is the limit, but one thing my godfather said was if the sky was the limit, there would be no footprints on the moon. So there is no limit to what you are able to achieve. If I could do it, so can you.
Good advice and good inspiring words for our young people, and we appreciate it. And I was listening too, because that
And
can
thank you for
go for
having
us
me
adults
on.
too as we venture out into new jobs or new creative things that we're doing, like we're doing here. Of course, I mean, well, we had Portsmouth Coffee Talk for about 3 years, but this is my baby here, starting off, so I can have intimate conversations with people, and I appreciate you coming. So thanks a lot, and we
Thank
appreciate it, and thanks everybody for watching. And remember, be aware, be informed, and most of all, be involved. And remember, your vote is your voice. And don't forget to pray to God. Take
you.
care. I'll
Amen.
see you. Thank you, Latrice. I'll
Thank
see
you
you
for
next
having
time.
me.
Appreciate
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you.